Good evening, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Sunday Night Live with me, Jonny Lipsham, here at Jonny Lipsham Studios in sunny Midlothian, Scotland. And I say sunny, and my weather application in the taskbar on Windows has just said rain. So I lied. Yes, weather can kind of change on a penny here. Basically, 1 minute it can be sunny and then suddenly clouds come up from nowhere and suddenly you've got rain, torrential rain. So, it is what it is. I hope everybody is doing well and has had a good week. Yeah, been a good one here. Busy, especially this weekend. This weekend has not really felt like a weekend. I have just been slammed with family commitments and a very long day today. Which kind of finished about an hour ago, to be honest. And then it's just like, great, I have a chance to throw some food down my gullet at 11 o'clock at night and then get myself ready to talk to you guys. So, hope everyone's doing well. Looks like we've got a small crowd in tonight. It is Memorial Weekend, I get that. So, it's a 3-day weekend, so probably people are taking advantage of that. And that is cool. Everybody is more than welcome to enjoy family time for Memorial Weekend. So if we don't have a particularly big crowd, then we'll make this a short show. It's fine. I don't have a problem with doing that. I don't really want to make short shows kind of, common practice. But it's kind of up to you guys. If you keep asking me the questions and I keep answering them, then we'll get through a lot of stuff and a lot of shows, hopefully. Anyway. Let's see who's here. Billy Morgan is here. Kevin from Kevin Guitar Stories is here. Just Bob dropped by to say hello, and he is going to miss the show, unfortunately. But a big shout out to you, Bob, because you are awesome, and I appreciate you a lot. And Rich is here as well. He says salut. Good to see that Rich's French is in good order. Let's see, Alps Media is here, my very faithful sponsor. Peace Valley Audio, that would be my good friend Mike Neighbor, is here as well. And Kevin has the first question of the evening, which we'll get to in just a minute. And we also have Don Oliver here, Andrew Lamb, John Hawk, Paul Morgan, and I think we have caught up with everybody that has said hello in the chat so far. So if you are watching and this is your first time here, welcome. And if you have never said boo to a goose in my shows, then please feel free. Don't be afraid to just say, hey, I'm here and I'm watching and I'm enjoying it. That's great. And I will shout you out by name. I like doing that. So if you're new and you've not seen this show before, it's basically, for the most part, a Q&A show for Studio One and Notion and that kind of stuff, as well as, we kind of touch on songwriting and a little bit of mixing, and we talk about mastering as well. Basically, whatever you guys have got questions about, to be really honest. I do want to do some full kind of, make the show a little bit more topic orientated, or at least half of the show kind of to do with a particular subject. We've done that a few times, so I'd like to do that a little bit more. But that kind of depends upon you guys. If you have a particular thing or issue or a subject that you want to talk about, then I am very much up for doing that. All you really need to do is just send me an email, go down to this website down here, and then when you get to the bottom of the page, there is a message feature, and you can contact me there. Just fill that out and put in the subject that you are interested in for the show, and I'll get to it. And we'll make that, a subject for a show. And if I've got a good list of subjects, then we'll be able to do a few in a row. And that would be great to do that. So, let's have at those. If you guys are up for that, if that's what you would like to see, if you would like more topic-based stuff, then give me some topics and we'll do them. That's how we'll start the show. We'll do like half doing the topic, and then the other half we will do a little bit more Q&A like we have done traditionally. So if you guys are up for that, get those topics to me and we'll draw up a list and we'll get plowing our way through them. I would appreciate that if you guys are up for it. Dwayne has just joined us. He says he's here watching, which is awesome. Glad you're here. And see, I told you. I said I'd shout you out if you're here. So we've only got about 10 people, 8, 9, 10 people, which is way lower than what we're used to. That's for sure. We would normally get maybe 20, 24, 25 people here. So a little bit disappointingly low on numbers. So this could be a short one. Because so far we've only got the one question. So Kevin says, I want my song to be in the key of A minor so I can solo out of the A minor pentatonic. What chord choices do I have? Well, there's a couple of ways you can approach this. You can either go down traditional chord changes based on different degrees of the scale. So you can have chord 1, chord 4, and chord 5. So you can do that, or you can go 1, 4, 1, 4, and then you can go 2, 5, 1. So you could kind of build your song based around those, or you could be a little bit more blues orientated, you know. You can do that kind of thing, and then, go through the whole degrees of the scale, kind of. And so you can kind of jam out just on that kind of a thing. Your other option is to make some chords based out of the A minor pentatonic scale itself. Now, there's only 5 notes. But what you can do is you can take those notes and you can build a chord out of those. So you can take the 1, the 4, and the 7. Build that into a chord. It's an ambiguous chord. It now no longer sounds major or minor. And you can... kind of a little bit more, it's still a little bit blues orientated, but what I'm doing here is I'm using, I'm just using kind of the notes from that, that pentatonic scale. But making it a little bit more ambiguous sounding by making them into stacks of fourths. So you can certainly try that. And then that gives you a little bit more freedom to stop thinking about chords so you can focus upon just developing melodic ideas for your improvising. So, I mean, a lot of people when they improvise, they just kind of, they'll scream up and down the pentatonic scale. Which isn't very musical. Yes, it's blazing fast, and there is a place for that, but it's not the most musical thing ever that you're ever going to hear. So, I think personally the best approach to improvising is try developing melodic ideas and little motifs and little phrases that you can then expand upon. And if you don't have to think about chord changes, then you can focus more on that. So, so yeah, there's lots of, you can do the 1, 4, 5 thing, but you can also use chord 6 as well, which is going to be F major in the key of A minor. So. So you've got plenty of different options there, and then you can go up to chord 4. And all of anything that you do with the A minor pentatonic will fit with those chord changes just perfectly. So that's an option to consider, and that's pretty much all the questions we have. So there we go. You guys are all saying hello to each other, which is nice. I like that. Paul says he's here twice. Oh, so there are 2 of you now. That's cool. All right, so we've only got like 9 people here, which is a bit disappointing to say the least. As I say, we'd normally get way more than this, so this is a bit disappointing. Dwayne says, my not so smart iPhone doesn't fill out the names. That's fine. Don't worry about that, but we're glad you're here, Dwayne. And if you've got a question or something that you want to talk about, then get that in the chat. We're only 21 minutes in, and we've dealt with Kevin's question about what he can do with the A minor pentatonic scale. So it'd be nice if we get some more. Cleon is here. Hello, Cleon. Welcome. Glad you're here to make up our very low numbers tonight. It'd be nice if we got some more people, as I say, but it doesn't look like we're going to. But if you've got a question, get it into the chat, folks. Otherwise, we're pretty much going to wrap up the show. Because this show kind of depends upon you guys. To be honest, that's what I do this show for. I do this show for you guys. I enjoy doing it, but it's primarily for you. It's it's not really about me particularly. This is kind of about you guys. So let's see. Paul says, do you find you play differently on different length keyboards? Well, actually, it depends upon the action of the keyboard. So this has a weighted action, and this is an 88 key. But the Fender Rhodes that I have is a 73 key, so it's a little bit smaller. And so you just have to be aware of your limitations a little bit. And then this one up here, this is a 61 key. And again, I just need to be aware of kind of what I can and cannot do on here. Because it is that little bit smaller. It's not going to trigger any sounds because there's nothing kind of connected to it at the moment. But different keyboards require a different amount of, especially if they don't have a weighted action. Like this one has no weighted action at all. So, I don't have to press the keys very hard to get anything to happen. Whereas with this one, it's a little bit more effort. I mean, I could have kept that going for a little bit longer, but I was beginning to start to feel it quite noticeably in my fingers as I was doing that. And then the Fender Rhodes is heavier than this still, so that's even more effort that's required from your fingers. But yeah, the actual range of the keyboard or the size of the keyboard doesn't really make a massive difference. Unless, for example, I am, accompanying myself when I'm improvising, which when I do that, I tend to use chords here. can do that on the 88, but doing that up here, I have fewer options. You know, I've probably got like a couple of octaves, really. Whereas down here, I can go much higher on the keyboard. So long as I bear in mind kind of how much range I have, then, you know, I'm good. Good question, though. Bjorn says, is there any way to speed up loading times for plugins without buying an SSD for Studio One? If you have just a mechanical hard drive, make sure your hard drive is a 7200 RPM spinning drive. If it's 5400, you're going to struggle, because in order to get the best streaming for reading and writing data to and from your hard drive and Studio One, you need to have the fastest possible spinning drive. A 5400 won't cut it, and the reason why it won't cut it is because by the time data is being read and being written, you end up starting to get bottlenecks because the drive itself is just too slow, and then your computer has to dump more and more stuff into memory temporarily before it can then write it to your hard drive. And so you can end up getting a data bottleneck, and then you start getting dropouts, you start getting audio artifacts, and you start getting CPU spikes in the performance monitor in Studio One. So I would always recommend a 7200 RPM mechanical drive or an SSD. SSD is going to be your best option for read-write speeds, because they are going to be well in excess of the speed that a mechanical drive will write. The other issue that you have is that mechanical drives, eventually that arm is going to fail. Basically, you have a spinning disk inside the drive and an arm which basically writes the data to different sectors on the drive. And eventually that arm is just going to fail. And eventually you're going to start getting bad blocks on that drive. And when that happens, you'll start losing some data. Songs will start getting corrupted. Or if you're loading plugins from that, you'll start getting missing presets or plugins that just don't load at all. So that would be my suggestion, is make sure that if you are going to have a mechanical drive, if that's your only option, is get a 7200 RPM drive. I have 3 7200 RPM drives, and they're, I think the smallest one is 2 terabytes. And then I've got a 3 terabyte, and then I've got a 6 terabyte drive. So I've got about 10 terabytes worth of storage. And they're all at that fast speed. It is a little bit of extra expense, but it's worth it. But I also have 2 SSDs inside my computer. I've got one for the system drive, and I've got one where all my songs are. So plugins, they are best written to, or rather installed on your C drive in the VST plugins folder or the VST3 folder if you're on Windows. And if you're on Mac, there's a VST plugins and a VST3 and a VST2 folder that they need to go in. So I think they are best put on your system drive. So make sure you have a system drive that has plenty of space. I know a lot of people, you know, I see this regularly in technical support where, you know, people are contacting us saying, my system drive is full. And we go, how big's the system drive? And they say 150 or 200 gigs. And we're just like, probably not enough. You probably need 500 to a terabyte for your system drive. And the reason why we suggest that is because so that you can store things like plugins, you can store things like your applications, and, you know, still have space to spare. The space to spare bit is important, so that the drive can operate as fast as possible, because the more the drive gets full, the harder the drive has to work to write data and to also retrieve that data, because it has to go looking for it. So that's an important consideration to make. So I hope that that answers that question. Dwayne says, I'm working to try and use my Studio One to record my live show instead of capture. All right, so if you're doing something live like I am here, I'm just using OBS, and you know, I use Studio One when I need to demonstrate something. But if you're talking about recording, you know, your live band or something using Studio One, then you will need a laptop with Studio One on it, and then you will want to, you know, if you are using a Studio Live mixer, for example, then you will want to be using that as your interface, and then just set up a template. Basically, just set up a template that has all your channels for your drums, your guitars, your keyboards, your backing vocals, your horn section, whatever it is that you have for your live show, and then just hit record and have it record the whole show. And then what you can do is you can set markers for the start and end of each of your songs, and then you can basically export the stems between those regions, between those marker points, to create a brand new song out of each one of those. And then you've got the individual songs where you can just do a mix of each individual song, or you can mix the whole thing as just like one long show and do crossfades between each song. It's kind of up to you how you want to do it, but using Studio One, that would be definitely something to consider. You know, kind of it kind of depends upon what your rig is for recording. Rich says, everyone loves reverb, but do folks know how cool open air actually is and the best way to use it as an effects channel send? Yes, open reverb is phenomenal. It really is. Room reverb is okay. There's nothing wrong with room reverb. It's pretty good. There are some extra things you can get for it, but open air is a phenomenal thing, especially if you purchase the Convology bundle that you can get from the Persona shop. And then that just loads those presets into open air, and open air is a phenomenon. What's really great, and the thing I love the most about open air, is not only is it a great reverb plugin and it uses convolution technology and impulse responses to actually capture real actual spaces in order to generate the reverb, but it also has some EQ controls on it, so you can actually EQ the sound of that space, which means you can lose some of the low end, you can lose some of the brightness that you maybe don't need, because those things can build up in a mix. And I think I talked about this either last week or the week before, where I talked about EQing reverbs to basically get some of that kind of low, mid, and low range build up in your songs. Sometimes it's not in the channels itself. Sometimes it's in the reverbs and delays, the ambient effects that you're using. So open air has EQ built into it, which is awesome. It's a very, very handy little feature within that. John Hawk says, how do you use sound variations in MIDI? Sound variations are very, very cool. I'm not really an expert in those. Lucas Rusidska, my good friend, is definitely an expert. But there are things that you can do, which is very, very cool. Let's go and see what we can pull up here. That's going to help us to demonstrate this nicely. Oops. Didn't mean to do that. All right, so let's go over to Studio One. Here we go. And what I've got here is I've got the violin section from the Persona Symphonic Orchestra. And then this section here is all the, what we used to call key switches, but we call these now sound variations. And what we can do is we can create an event, And we can expand this out like this. We can draw in some nice notes. And then what we can do is down in this section here where it says sound variations, we can hit this button here. And then what we can do is we can drag and drop these into here. I'm going to go and change over to this pencil here. And I'm going to drag that to the start there. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to move to tremolo here. And then on this one, let's go for a little bit of trillage. I like a little bit of trillage. And then we'll do a different type of trillage here. And then let's go grace note down maybe on this one. And then let's play that back and see what we get. And that last one was delightfully short. But there you go. This is the sound variations editor dialogue thing. And then you can just drag and drop these in. So that you can have these kind of set up after the fact. And you can also combine it with musical symbols as well. Which is very, very cool. If I can remember how to do it. I can't remember how to do it, which is a pain in the butt. Musical symbols. Here we go. So let's say a little bit of piano. Oh, can I not drag and drop this? I thought I could. Yeah, that's annoying. Yeah, I thought I could drag and drop those as well. Maybe I'm wrong about that. I think I have to associate this with this. I think that's what I have to do. But yeah, so you can have your sound variations, and you can put musical symbols as well in at the same time. So yeah, I'm not really a massive expert in these. I don't tend to use them very much. But Rich is definitely an expert. He says sound variations are super easy when you get it once. You will fully understand it. Yep, they're very good. Let's see what else we got. Hey, Sean Aaron is here, which is fantastic. Cleon says I have a 7200, but I've realized recently with some plugin updates of third-party plugins have really slowed down loading times, and some of them are on SSD. Should I do a Studio One fresh install? If you are absolutely certain that it is your third-party plugins that are loading slowly, then I would recommend not uninstalling Studio One. I would recommend uninstalling and reinstalling those plugins. Is what I would suggest, rather than doing Studio One. So try uninstalling and reinstalling the plugins first, then open up a new song and test to see if the problem still happens, and then if the problem still happens, then definitely I would say maybe try uninstalling and reinstalling Studio One and see if that resolves the issue. But if the issue, didn't happen before your plugins updated, then there's a good chance that the actual updates for the plugins themselves are what is causing the problem with loading times inside of Studio One. That's probably the most likely outcome. And you can either uninstall those updated plugins and roll them back to a previous version. It's kind of up to you what you want to do at that point. Rich says you can right-click any single note in the piano roll to assign. That's what I was missing. That's the part I was missing. Thank you. So if I go musical function, no, it's not musical functions. Where is it? Here we go. Articulations. That's the part I was missing out. Forte piano. Oh, these are quite cool. So let's say fortissimo. There you go. And then this one here. Let's right click that one. And let's go sforzando. And then what about this one here? Let's right click this one. Articulation. Fortissimo forzando. Let's see what that sounds like. There we go. So that's how you get the musical symbols in there. Okay, that's cool. That's the part I couldn't remember. You can also shift click and move a sound variation with any given notes, as well as switching them out by right clicking the sound variation label. That's really good information to know. Thank you for that. That is awesome. Cleon says, all right, I'll do that. Uninstalling Slate is easy, but plugin Alliance is another cup of tea, but I'll try it. Okay, cool. Next option, apply sound variation, not articulation. If it's not linked to the articulation, I have no effect. Okay. Okay. Apply sound variation. Yep. Yep. Yeah, you can swap those out that way, I guess. So let's say this one here, maybe we could swap this one out here. Apply sound variation. Let's go for minor arpeggio. And that made no sound whatsoever. That's curious. Why that made no difference whatsoever. Okay, let's try that. That's a good way to finish that off. There we go. So those sound variations and musical symbols are loads of fun. I've obviously not finished these off, but yeah, they are loads and loads and loads of fun and well worth getting into. You can also do this at the bottom. It's quicker. Right click the color labels. Yep, there you go. And there's all of these as well. Insert that cursor. There's all of these. Some of these are like piano ones, like pedal down. You're not going to do that with a violin. And you're not necessarily going to do guitar taps or that kind of stuff. But there's loads of those there, which is pretty cool. So you can have loads of fun with those. John says, point me to a video on sound variations if you know one. I think Rich has done a video, I think, but I also know that Lucas Rzycka has done several videos on sound variations. The reason why he's kind of extremely expert on these is because he, I think he actually wrote most of this. I think he wrote most of the sound variations scripts for Studio One because he's pretty awesome. John said, Rich says, I'll do one if I haven't already. Lucas Rzycka has a few already. Yeah, he definitely does. Because he kind of wrote most of this stuff for sound variations and musical symbols. He was very much involved in all of this stuff. Because he is freaking awesome. All right, any other questions, guys? Because we have 15 minutes left to go. Let's see. Have I missed anything? I don't think I have. yeah, I don't think I've missed anything. But yeah, Rich knows his stuff with sound variations and stuff. I don't really use them very much, to be really honest. I'm aware that they're there, and when I need to make use of them, I make use of them. And I probably do things the long way around because that's just me. Once I've found a way to do something, that's the way I do it. And quite often people say, why do you do it that way? That's the long way to do it. And I'm just like, that's the way I've always done it, and it might be the long way to you, but to me, I can do it pretty quickly. And, you know, it doesn't really bother me too terribly much. So, yeah, there is that. Leon says, I recall the newest Studio One version allows a customizable VST3 plugin folder, but I haven't really seen anything about that. Now, there's an interesting point about that. That's a thing that Studio One does internally. It's not something that is necessarily customer facing, if you catch my drift. It's kind of hard to explain. In the release notes are a little bit vague on this point, I will grant you. If I can find the release notes for that. Let's see, where are they? I have to try and find them. User release notes. There we go. And I can see if I can find. I think it was in the previous version. Let's see if I can find it. I just made Adobe crash. Yes, I have. Damn it. Trying to find it in the release notes where it talks about this, and I can't find it. Okay, I'm going to share my screen again. What I'm looking for is where it talked about and I'm not seeing it. There you go. Added new user VST3 plugin location for Windows. And basically, this is just another folder that VST3 plugins get installed to automatically. That's all this is. That's why nobody's ever done a specific video on it. Joe hasn't, Gregor hasn't, I haven't. And the reason is that it's not really that big a deal, to be honest. It's not a major, brand new, easier functionality. It's just another VST3 plugin location that is scanned by Studio One. That's pretty much it. Nothing major really about it. It basically creates an internal virtual folder that points to its original location, but it does not move it on your operating system. That is correct. That is exactly what that does. Yeah. So it's not really a big deal, particularly. But yeah, that's all that does. Cleon says, because I wondered if I could just move all my VST3s to another folder and allow Studio One to detect it, but I haven't seen anything concerning it, so I just left them alone. Yeah, it's not really something to worry about. The VST3 folder that relates to is for developers is not write protected folder, whereas the program files folder may be. Yes, that is also correct. Rich is on fire. In fact, Rich really should probably just do this show, to be honest, because the guy is extremely knowledgeable, knows his stuff. And I would actually encourage Rich to do his own show, to be honest. Rich, you should. You should just do your own show, because I think it would be awesome. And I would definitely watch it, and I would definitely support it. If you decided to do your own weekly show or your own monthly show, that would be great. The more the merrier, as far as I'm concerned. Shouldn't just be me and Johnny Gibe and, Gregor and Joe. Let's the more creators get involved in making content for Studio One, the better, I think, because then you have, a bit more diversity. Rich says, I know nothing, which is, of course, a complete lie. And lying is a sin. But yeah. So there it is. But yeah, that explains that. Peer pressure. Yeah, absolutely peer pressure. Because, you're always making little videos for folks in the Studio One Facebook group. So, why not, actually do a show where you actually, have a little bit more free reign to, to talk about things in a bit more depth. Especially if you were to, cover subjects that Jonny and I don't cover. Like, Jonny certainly doesn't cover orchestral libraries. I don't really, because I don't really currently have a use for them. I mean, I have the BBC SO, and I have the Bristolian Symphonic Orchestra, and I have a couple of others, but I don't really use them a lot, so I don't really have a great deal of point for making videos on that kind of stuff when I don't really deal with it in depth on a daily basis. So that could be something that you could cover. I would think that could be your realm, or one of your realms. Why not? Why the heck not? Cleon says that Rich knows much and should share the wisdom. For sure. I totally agree with that. Totally agree with that. Yeah, Rich says it's kind of embarrassing the number of libraries I own, to be honest. Yeah, I decided many years ago, because I kind of got caught in this whole gear acquisition thing. Many years ago, probably kind of just around about the turn of the century, coming into the 21st century, I kind of got caught up in this a little bit, using Cubase, and I just bought every plugin that I saw that there was. I think Waves did a deal on their Platinum bundle. I think it was their Platinum bundle. I can't remember. We're talking like 1999, 2000. I can't remember which bundle it was. I think it was the Platinum. I could be wrong though. And I was just like, great, I'm getting that. And so I did. It was expensive. It was a lot of money for pretty much every plugin that Waves makes. And I got them. I got the whole lot. And there were some other plugins I got as well. And I just had loads and loads and loads of plugins. And I kept on just buying loads and loads of plugins. And then I found myself in a position where, as I was mixing, I was going, okay, which compressor am I going to use? On this particular channel, I think I'm going to use an 1176 style compressor. And I had so many different 1176 compressors to choose from. It was a case of which one am I going to use? And they're all 1176s, and they're all made by different manufacturers, so they maybe have slightly different modeling techniques. They maybe have a slightly different sound. There are subtle nuances between each individual plugin. And I was just like, it was taking me, 15, 20, 25 seconds to decide which plugin I was going to use, which 1176 plugin I was going to use. And I thought, this is ridiculous. And then a friend of mine kind of caught wind of my dilemma, and he said, look, why don't you just set aside 3 months where you just deactivate every third-party plugin and you just use the ones that are in Cubase. Just use the stock plugins in Cubase and see if you can mix and get as good mixes out of just those plugins, and just take a complete break from third-party plugins. So you've got like just one compressor, you've got one EQ, you've got one reverb, you've got one delay, you've got, you've just got like just a much smaller bundle of plugins to choose from. I was like, yeah, okay, why not? So I did it for 3 months. And from there, I got to the end of the 3 months, and I basically just kept on going. And I kept on going, and I kept on going, and I kept on going. And fast forward 16 years later, I finally thought, maybe it's time I went back to my third-party plugins, by which time I was already very well entrenched in Studio One. I was deep into it. And so, when we launched Studio One 3.5, I decided, right, that's the moment that I'm going to start getting some of those plugins back. And so I made a choice. And that choice was that instead of just bringing all of those plugins back, I decided I was just going to get plugins that I know that I need, that I know that I like, and just restrict myself a bit more. Rather than just buying plugins for the sake of buying plugins, I decided, okay, I only need one 1176, maybe two 1176s for argument's sake, and maybe a couple of LA2As, and a couple of Fairchilds, and maybe a couple of Neve style and SSL style EQs, and a couple of console emulators, and that's basically where I got to. And then I went and got the Slate All Access Pass, and I had that for a while, mostly because a friend of mine bought me that for a year. He bought me a year All Access Pass, and I used those for quite a bit. Until I realized that when they update them, they have a tendency to break them. Like, you update them and the product keys get broken. I found that a couple of times. And so I thought, okay, this is just a nuisance. So I cancelled. Once I got to the end of that year, I cancelled the Slate All Access Pass. And basically now I just use mostly native plugins from Studio One, from Presonus, but I also use Plugin Alliance. I'm a big fan of Plugin Alliance and Klanghelm. Those are kind of like the main third-party plugins I have. I also have the complete, it's not called the complete, what is it called? The total, is it called the total bundle with FabFilter? I've got that. I did not pay for that. They gave me that. And that's got some really, really awesome plugins. I love those. They are very, very cool. Particularly the Pro Q3. That is one of the best EQs I've come across. I have an older version of RX. I have RX7, the Elements version of that, which gives me some useful little utilities tools. And then I've got some Klanghelm plugins. I've got the MJUC, which is one of my favorite compressors of all time. And I've got the DC1A3, which is fantastic. And then I've got a bunch of plugins from Plugin Alliance, which I've just handpicked and gone, yeah, I like the look of that. I like the look of that. I like the look of that. And, kind of gone from there, really. And that's just kind of the way I work now. I kind of only buy plugins that I want and that I think I'm actually going to need, rather than just buying plugins for the sake of it. Don says, it is an addiction. Yeah, it certainly was for me. And the way for me to break that was to kind of just take them all away, remove them as an option, so that I have no choice but to use just the native plugins and just go from there and basically go, okay, if I can't mix with native plugins on their own, then what the heck am I doing? I really shouldn't be calling myself a professional mix engineer if I can't just use native plugins. So that was really how I went about it. Rich says, FabFilter is my go-to. Yep, absolutely. John Hawk says, I probably have 100 compressors and I can't even compress. I know that feeling. It's funny, compression, for some people, just takes a lot of time before the whole concept gets into their head, particularly attack and release times can be confusing for quite a while. For me, it wasn't quite so hard, mostly because when I first got into music production, I had the luxury of being able to learn with a really, really good mix engineer on an SSL 4000E console. That's what I learned on. That was my first mixing experience. Really, was on that console. And actual hardware units like hardware LA2 and hardware 1176 compressors, and we had a couple of other EQs and things that we could patch into the mixer. So that was kind of what I learned on to start with before I went, and just, there's no way I could afford an SSL console myself, so I had to go in the box, and that's fine. And being actually in the box totally works for me, to be honest. I don't miss the console at all because on the console once you've dialed in the mix on the board, you have to keep it. You can't touch it until you print it, and then you can start, and then you can reset the board. But then if once you've printed the mix and they come back to you and some weeks later and they say, hey, we think there's like the guitar, one of the guitars in this mix is it's too harsh or something. Well, then I have to go and reset the whole mix from a sheet that's got everything written on it, and you just have to reset the entire board and then go and make that adjustment and then print the mix again. Pain in the butt. So yeah, stupid. Cleon says I must consider those Klanghelm compressors. Yeah, they are awesome. If you've never seen them before, we can kind of do a little quick show of what they look like, because they are fantastic. I'll show you the DC1A3 first. This is really cool. I'm going to close that out. This is really cool because it's basically just an input and an output control. So on the face of it, it's really, really simple to use. But you also have these buttons here. You have deep, you have relax, you have dual mono, and you have negative. So you can do some negative compression if you want to. And there are some handy presets. I think there were, or maybe there aren't anymore. Maybe when I updated this, I did not download the presets. That might be true. But anyway, you can just dial this input and output controls up and down and control the compression that way. And then just try these buttons out and see kind of what they sound like. I have no idea what these are doing under the hood particularly, but they are very, very cool. And it's a lovely looking GUI as well, very nice and retro. And then we've got the MJUC. Now this is really cool. What I like about this guy is because it's basically 3 compressors in one. And then it has this little hidden panel down the bottom, which gives you some controls over timbre, drive, sidechain filter, and a wet dry knob, which is very, very cool. So you can do parallel compression inside the plugin. But it kind of starts off very retro. Maybe, 1960s style compressor. You've got a compression knob here. And then you've got this timing switch here, which goes from 1 to 6. And I think 1 is the fastest, and I think 6 is the slowest, if memory serves. And then you can put it in compressor or limiter mode. And then you've got automatic gain compensation up here. And as you can see here, it's calibrated to -18 on the scale here, which is set to gain reduction. And then you click MK2 and you get a completely different GUI. You still got the same kind of compress and makeup knob, but this time you've got an attack and release set of buttons here, and then you've got a little bit more control over ratio. And then you've got this I stage, which is like a second stage of compression altogether, which is weird but wonderful. Sounds fantastic. Now with this one, there are I still do have the presets, which is pretty cool if you need to use presets, you can. And then these are really, really cool. And then there's the MK3, which is a little bit more modern, and you've still got this I stage, but you've got a high ratio setting now, and a density button. And then you got this punch slider, which kind of allows more transient through. Even if you've got this attack on the fastest setting, you can smack that up to 3, and somehow it allows for a bit more transient to come through before it gets compressed, which is weird, but cool. So yeah, depending upon what I'm doing, what kind of music I'm working with, I will use, one of these different ones. Like for maybe something a little bit more jazz orientated, I might use this one. And then make it a little bit darker, and add a little bit more drive, what have you. Kind of depends what I'm working with. And then you've got this guy here, the SDRR tube, which is a saturation thing, which is freaking ridiculous. This is well worth checking out. You've got three stages of saturation, and then you've got this little knob over here that I don't even understand. And then you've got drive and output controls, and then you can control the character, the harmonic balance, and the frequency response, and the dynamics. It's pretty awesome. Definitely worth checking these out. Some of these are free. If you go over to klanghelm.com, you'll find that some of these are free, and some of these are not. If you're kind of a little bit ambivalent about the MJUC, there is a free version of it that you can try out that basically gives you a combination of all 3 of those compressors kind of combined into one as a kind of demo. But it's not really a demo, it's just a free version of the plugin. You can have it forever if you want to. So they are well worth having from Klanghelm. And there's a few other things that he's got over there. It's a one-man operation. It's run by a guy called Tony. He's a German dude. I don't even know his last name. I think his last name is virtually unpronounceable. But yeah, he's a cool guy. Rich says, a trick to hearing the compressor is to turn the volume down really low to the point you can barely hear it. You trick your ear into focusing on the transient and how it's affected. That's a great little tip right there. There's a little more to it than that, but yeah, definitely. Auto gain and oversampling is great. Yep. Cleon says he's going to check those out. Let's see. John Hawk says, I ordered some proper headphones, so maybe I will hear my mixes better. Awesome. Peter Brick says, I have an addiction. You buying VSTs, and I mean dollars. Lots of dollars. Yes. Cool. All right. I think with that, we are probably done for the day. Thanks, guys, for pitching in with your questions. Cleon says, I have to use the Slate FG Dynamics, SSL, and Opto. Yes, there is a great Opto compressor from Plugin Alliance as well. The AMIC 9099 from Plugin Alliance does a lot of my work, and AMIC 200 and Massenburg EQ. Yeah, those are all great options for sure. The great thing, Rich says, the great thing is now regardless, I know what to pull out, whatever the requirement. Yeah, it takes a little bit of time to kind of attenuate and attune your ears to kind of the sounds that you like and the sounds that you know are going to get you the results you want from a particular sound source, for sure. Yeah, I mean, I've been doing this since on computers. I've been mixing on computers since maybe 1998, 1999. But before then, tape machines, and by tape machines, I mean things like Studers, and the SSL 4000E, and a little bit later, I worked on an Eve console. So that's kind of where I cut my cloth starting out, so to speak, in the late 1980s. So probably like 1988, 1989 was when I first got into mixing. And so been going from there and then making a living from it probably since about 1998. And here we are in 2022. And, you know, there is still much for me to learn, as there is for all of us, I think. So on that note, I'm going to say good night. Thank you, everybody, for pitching in with some really great questions. We got the show going, which is cool. And we topped out at 16, which is lower than usual. We would normally top out at about 24, 25. So we may have lost a few of our regular viewers to Memorial Weekend, and that's fine. That's absolutely cool. No problem at all. Hopefully next week we'll have a few more people here, and it'll be great. So on that note, folks, thanks very much, and I will see you all on Wednesday on the Home Studio Trainer YouTube channel for Songwriting Simplified with Jonny Gybe. If you have not subscribed to my channel before, hit the subscribe button now down there. And also click the notification bell as well and select all notifications. And that way you'll get notified about this show and you'll get notified about videos that I put out. And I've got a whole batch of videos that are coming over the next few weeks. And also other stuff that I put in the community section of the channel. So please do that. And I will see you all on Wednesday. Good night, everybody.